All right, guys. Thanks for coming out to our runner seminar. So today I'm just going to give you a little introduction first about why we do the running seminar, the importance of it, and then also I'll just give you an overview of what to expect for today. So the first is go over an introduction. Then we're going to go over the mechanics of running. Okay, so Andrew's going to take us through the mechanics, what we see in assessment, how we can pick that up to make sure that you're going to be able to be efficient when you're running. And then I'll go over the strength component to it. So the things that you see in the gym, these exercises, how they actually carry over to running. So a lot of these moves that you've already done, but now you kind of get more context to what's going on so you can put it all together. All right. And then at the end too, we'll give you, some of you guys that want to get into running more, give you a little bit of a program where how you can get started to progress yourself in a safe manner to build yourself up for whether you want to do a 10K or a 5K or whatever your goals are there, and then break that down. All right. First, in the introduction of why we do this, right, is as human beings, what we all do is we walk, right? It's the main thing that we all do. So understanding the mechanics of running from the perspective of just your human bodies and what you do is it really helps us put together the right program and exercises for you guys. Because if you're able to have the mechanics of running, you should be able, that's your baseline to do everything else well. All right? So we need to be able to walk before we run and build that up from there. So that's what you're going to see there. And that's why it's so important, not just for runners, but for everybody. So our whole goal for everybody is to make sure that they can walk and they can run pretty well, because then we can do all sorts of things from there. So this is a main thing that we look for, what we're looking for in everything that we do for everybody. The other thing is center of mass. Every time we're moving, we have to find our center of mass as we move. So you'll see as we go through these stances and how our bodies are able to find the center of mass, so we can actually have good form and good economy in our running. So this stuff that we're doing today is of great importance, not only for just this seminar and if you want for your goals, but for everybody. It's actually the base foundation that we want to lay down for every one of our members. Okay, and so the more you guys understand it in your exercises, the more it's going to be repetitive in your head, and it's not going to seem so complex. So that's really what we try to do, is take something that's complex and simplify it. And also for us, when we look at the human body working this way, it makes it more simple for us, because the way everything connects to each other can be very overwhelming. But when we look at what does every human need to do is to walk, when we can look at it from how everything's connected and walking, all the answers come about. So it's really helped us be able to do what we do with you guys, and like picking up things and giving you the right cues. Our brains always go back to this as the blueprint, and that's how we're able to do the things that we do on the floor with you guys. All right, so Andrew's going to take you through the phases in the gait cycle and the running cycle, and we'll go from there.
So fancy. This is fancy. All right, just some general things with the handout stuff. We're going to just go over, obviously, what muscles are involved in it, what's going on when you're going through each of the cycles of gait when running, and we're going to go over kind of, besides our lower body and our upper body, also visually what's going to be happening too. Reason being, as you're moving, you need to sense the world going around you. And then we're going to finish off with why arms are just as important with your legs. Everybody sees everyone running with their legs. That's the big sexy part. But your arms are just as important, if not important. And we'll get into that, and then we'll get into the assessment. All right. So, and thanks for everybody taking the time out of their day and coming here. So the first part we're going to go over is heel strike or early stance. So another basis too. I know some people, if you guys are runners, and let's say you don't run and hit your heel on the ground, even if you are a toe runner, or you're on the ball of the foot, your heel's still going to be in contact with your shoe. So it's going to be similar, regardless if your heel never touched the ground. All right, so the first thing we have is heel strike and early stance. So let's say you're a long distance runner. Usually people who are long distance runners, they're going to hit their heel. They have to because it's more of an endurance-based sport. So in order to be efficient, you want pretty much the whole contact of the foot on the ground. So for heel strike, obviously the heel is going to be the first part that hits. The lateral part of the hamstring, so the outside part of that hamstring, is going to prepare to help shift our center of mass over to that side. The glute max, or your glute on the opposite side, is going to assist kind of pushing you there. And then your abdominals, your abs on the side. So if I hit my left heel, my left abs have to turn on to help begin the compression cycle. So my brain can say, okay, I'm going to the left side, I got to get there. This is all happening without you guys thinking about it. So this is just what's going on. Don't think that like when you're running, I have to get this and that and this muscle. It's happening. So the very beginning of early stance, heel strike, your center of mass goes to that side, right? Your brain says, okay, my left heel hit the ground, my eye has to transition to that side. And there's an early ground reaction force. You hit the ground, you sense the ground coming up underneath you, so you have to sense that. You have no choice but to. All right, the other side must allow backward translation of the contact leg. So when I hit my heel on the ground, in order for me to get there, my center of mass has to go there, and this side, my left side, has to go back so my right side can come forward. This will make sense with some of the other stuff that Chris is going to talk about when you're doing your one-legged exercises like a hinge. You kind of rotate to that side. That's you sensing that one side is going forward, the other side is coming back, because you cannot go forward on both sides or back with both sides. Otherwise, you're falling. Each side of your body has to be doing something different. That's life, that's walking, that's moving. All right? Center of mass begins to translate over the stance leg. Right? It would make sense that my spine is going to help kind of lateralize or go in this direction where your contact leg is in. If it doesn't, you're not going to load it well, and you're not going to be able to swing off of it. So early stance, heel strike is pretty important. Right? You're going to a side, you have to stay there until the other leg swings, which we'll get into some of the other parts of the cycle. There is an absorption focus. So basically, hit the ground, my body has to absorb the contact, right? It has to absorb the force of gravity and the sense of the ground coming up. All right? And then the bottom is peripheral vision. So from the visual standpoint, the reason why the vision is important too is, believe it or not, like your visual system is involved highly when you're running, when you're walking. If I just look down, the whole world is just shut down. I'm going to use more neck. All my focus is here. And I'm going to be using muscles I don't necessarily want to use. But when my left heel hits, my brain has to be aware of this left periphery. So this left periphery and this left heel are corollaries, so they go together. So as soon as I hit my left heel, I already notice this side. If you even want to do that just walking around, let's say after this is finished, just walk. Be aware of, like, as soon as your heel hits the ground, you're already going to be aware of this side. And likewise, when this hits the ground, it has to. We kind of go through like a panoramic view from side to side. So at the very end, it'll make sense, and we'll bring it together. All right. Then the next phase is mid stance. All right. This is pretty much all of your one-legged exercises. We're going from either a heel strike-like thing to a mid stance, and as it comes to the top, this will be mid stance. So this is why we tell people, hey, I want you to feel your arch on this side when you're going down. All right, arch mid-foot, that's important for you being able to get there. IC adductor, it's basically the part of your inside thigh that attaches to your sit bone. That's going to tie in with your glute med and the glute minimus. These outside, actually, it should say anterior fibers, not posterior fibers. That's a mistake on my part. I'm sorry about that. All right, that inside thigh muscle and that outside hip muscle, that glute med, those stabilize your body so you can go to a side. If I heel strike there and those muscles don't kick on, as soon as this comes back, you're going to fall, or you're going to lean, or you're going to either lean or you're going to list. It's just not going to feel smooth. All right? The three amigos I like to say are your abdominals, inside thigh, outside hip. Hamstrings, the inside part of your hamstring works with that inside thigh muscle, that adductor, to help bring that side back, keep it back, so the other side can easily swing forward. All right, and abdominals. The abdominals on that side are going to be working more, so now we're in full compression of that side. Right, most compression, now they're the highest ground reaction forces. Now your brain's like, okay, I really feel the ground there. I sense it. I can't not sense it. Contact leg must accept the body weight and to stabilize there. If we're doing this right, we're going to find those muscles, inside thigh, outside hip, and an abdominal muscle. You should just feel pretty heavy on that leg. Like I could salsa, or I could river dance with the other leg. It's going to be loaded focus. Obviously, because it feels heavy, you're loading it. You have no choice. Your brain senses weight on that leg. All right?
To be able to load it, which now means that when we go and produce force, we're going to be able to push ourselves. So without loading that, now we can't propel ourselves back to the other side. So the early stance is really being able to take your body weight, so all your energy and your body weight's going towards that side. It has to absorb it, kind of absorb that energy right there. So now it's able to, so you don't kind of fall forward, and that'll allow you then, that energy will allow you to now propel and use that energy to now push yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And that would be more in going into that mid stance.
And that's why heel strike's important. If you don't do heel strike important, you're not going to be able to finish into swing. All right? And then peripheral optic flow. Pretty much, okay, my heel hit. I'm in mid stance now. I already had the periphery. I'm already aware of the periphery on this side. Now it's going to kind of panoramic view in. So the flow from, okay, I have the left. Now it's starting to go towards midline, even in what I see peripherally, what's going on. Let's say I hit my heel. I see Troy over here, transitioning. Now the view is kind of going here. All right? And then from late stance, early swing. So just one caveat with this versus focusing on like, okay, I got this, got this, got this, got this, and then I'm going to go. Before we even get to late stance, early swing, we have to ensure heel strike or early stance is done on the other side. If you don't, you're most likely going to fall, you might slip. It's just not going to feel smooth. This is why lateralization and sensing your center of mass is important, because if I'm not able to get my weight to the other side and stabilize and delay, if I go off too quickly, I'm going to go to the other side incorrectly, and I'm not going to do heel strike or early stance correctly. So here, cool, I'm in mid stance, I'm delaying, there's an internal rotation bias, I'm delaying, I still got my arch, nothing's happening. As soon as that heel hits, now this leg is going to go into late stance, push off, all that stuff, which is why you need the sense of both sides, right? You're a human, you have a left side and you have a right side. Those sides need to work together in order to go from side to side. But believe it or not, when you go forward, you don't just go sagittal, you don't just go forward. We have an inside, you're good, Dina, come through. There's an inside and an outside. There's a sheet right here. So you have a medial border and an outside border, right? When you go to the heel strike, early stance, I'm going to be already on the outside border. My weight transition there. Now I'm rolling to that arch. Now I have that inside border. I have to maintain this. This is why sometimes, I'll pick somebody out and be like, hey, keep your big toe, keep your ball of the foot on the ground, because otherwise, if I roll to the outside, I'm going back to early stance-ish, but not really. I'm just falling that way, which is why I want to make sure I'm able to keep the arch of my foot down so my other side can feel safe. If your brain doesn't feel safe to do something, it's going to cheat or do something else, which is not going to be efficient. All right? Okay. So for late stance or early swing for this leg, okay, we did the left side. We're going to stick with the left side now. So I was in delay. Cool. My right heel hits the floor. Now this is going to be in push-off, early swing. So the reference, the big toe on this side. So in this instance, my left big toe I'm going to feel, right? Because I went from heel, arch, Weight's transitioning forward. Now my brain says, okay, you're good. You have your right side. Let's let your left leg go. Now I'm on my big toe, maybe the ball of the big toe. You don't really press your big toe on the ground. It's kind of like a ramp. You just roll off of it just for the sake of like running, all right? So you don't have to pick it up or do anything like that. You're going to leave off of kind of dorsiflexion a little bit. Psoas on this side, it's going to help kind of swing the leg. With an iliacus, these are muscles that go from, so my iliacus is a muscle that goes inside of my pelvis to my thigh. It's going to help get that pelvis to go forward. The psoas is going to help rotate me a little bit to the other side. So again, because this is now my heel strike, this is now early stance. Besides those psoas muscles being flexors, they're also spinal rotators. It's a huge concept. And then quads, obviously my quad's going to help pick up my leg and extend my knee a little bit, just for the early part, all right? The adductor magnus, this is another adductor that you have, another inside thigh muscle. Where it's positioned, without geeking too much about anatomy, that muscle is positioned a little bit higher up on the sit bone, so that muscle is going to work with your glute to help swing the leg, and now the posterior fibers of your glute med is going to help assist for swinging forward. Hamstrings, your outside hamstring has to turn back on in order for you to swing the leg and also to help to accelerate once you get to heel strike again. So your hamstrings are huge, 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 huge. Back in the gladiator days when the guy was like weak, whatever, and they would just tear the hamstring, there's nothing he could do. You're essentially pretty much dead, and they would just wait for the emperor to do this or that. So your hamstrings involved actually in all parts of the gait cycle of walking. Right? This is why when people tear the ACLs, hamstring's huge, right? If you can't control the forces on the ground and what your pelvis is doing, you're going to probably overuse one or many muscles and just develop a whole bunch of overuse injuries, all of that stuff. So the hamstrings, there's an eccentric focus, acts as a femoral stabilizer for swing, right? So a swing in the leg, as I said before, that lateral part of the hamstring, that outside part, has to act almost as a braking mechanism, so it's not like taking me forward and then I fall that way in order to break it. So I can just do swing effectively. So hamstrings are a huge part. All right? So now the ground reaction force is directed anterior. If I'm going off my big toe, the forces are going to go forward. They're going to go that way because I need to go here. Decompression to little or no ground reaction force so the foot can resupinate. So just a little summary of what your foot's doing. Heel strike, cool. I'm on my arch. I'm going to keep on my arch until this heel strikes. Now from my arch, my heel is going to resupinate. It's already doing all this stuff. You don't have to focus on, I got to do this, then that. It's doing it already. If you do it right and my feet are straight, you're doing it. So now it resupinates my heel. So if this is my middle of my foot, toe, heel, boom. It's going to do that. So that lever is going to allow you to roll off your big toe. All right, your center of mass now begins to leave stance to swing. Makes sense. Going from my arch, rolling off my big toe into swing. All right, you're totally unloaded on this side, on the side that you're swinging with, and you're going to be totally loaded on this side because now you're going on the other side into mid stance. All right, toe off the swing. There is a external rotation bias to that, and peripheral propulsion. From the visually, what's going on is I've gone to peripheral optic flow to now it's going to drift to the other side. So once this heel hits, actually, I'm sorry. So swinging. Once that heel hits, it's going to eventually get back here. So this is that panoramic view of heel strikes. I got the periphery on this side. I'm delaying my visual. What I'm seeing now is progressing now to the middle until that leg swings. Once the heel hits, now I got the periphery on this side. So that's what I mean by the panoramic view. This is all happening at once without you trying to look everywhere. Your brain has to do it. All right? And this will tie in later with the arms. All right? And we're now at arms. So arm swings. Arms serve as our counterbalance. They balance the momentum of our legs. I work with a Parkinson's patient, and I'm having her doing all of these walking stuff. I don't even focus on her legs. I want her to swing her arms. I want to make sure the arms are flowing. There's even studies out there that if I don't move my arms, I'm more likely to develop kind of Parkinson's. Everything's splinted in place. There's no flow from side to side. Your arms are your pendulums of your body. They help create lift when moving, right? If you're sprinting, my arms have to counteract what my legs are doing in order to help create that lift, right? And they're the biggest factors to running economy, all right? If I don't get necessary rotation, this trunk rotation from side to side, it doesn't have to be excessive, but it has to feel enough, right? My left hand and arm are tied in with my right leg and ankle. They both go together forward, and they both come together back, all right? From the arm, the tricep, so if I use my right arm and my left leg, these are tied together. They go together, they go together forward, and they go together back. If my right arm didn't come back with me and I just splinted, I'm going to fall there, which is how most people are going through the world. They're just kind of, their arms are splinted by their side, and they're just kind of waddling like a duck. So lack of swing, additional undesirable stress. So this is what I was talking about before. If my arms are splinted by my side, there is no rotation, I'm waddling, I'm overextending my back. That's going to create additional stress, either upstream or downstream, knees, ankles, you name it. So allow your arms to move. You don't have to power walk and go like this, but you just want to use your arms to help create flow from side to side, kind of similar to what skiers are doing, right? When they're doing like this with the pole. They're pushing through the ground to get to a side. That's what our arms do for us, all right? Even for sprinting, arms hold our posture throughout the acceleration. If you look at a picture of a sprinter, their arms are pretty jacked because they literally have to match the speed that their legs are going. So it makes sense over time through their training without even cueing stuff. They have to be very, very, very built in order to match what their legs are doing. All right, so we want to focus on leading with our left arm and our right leg forward when beginning to run or finish. Just reason being, as humans, we have this propensity to always love the right side. We're always here, counter-rotated back to the left. What am I? I'm in right mid stance. I'm in left swing. Could do this all day. I'm kicking a soccer ball, my left foot, and my right leg is holding me here. But if we focus on eventually, because you're a human, you have two sides, I got to get to the left side. So my left leg can be more in stance, and my right leg can be more in swing. From the lower body. Now from an upper body, I want to make sure, if you guys have done any of the PRI breathing stuff that you have in your program, you'll hear us always say, hey, make sure you get a right tricep, a right low trap. Reason being, those muscles extend your right arm, so my right arm is not splinted to my body, but it's behind me. As soon as I do that, that puts me on my left leg. And that's what I'm trying to do with my Parkinson's lady, is when I'm having her swing her arms, I want to make sure her right arm leaves her body, okay? This pendular activity, as soon as this does that, I got no choice but to be here. Because if I am here, I'm going to fall, all right? All right, this little paragraph, I'm going to read it, and then we're going to break it down of, again, why it's important. This I got from a study. If you're curious, you can look at the study here and read it for yourself. So I'm going to read it. Moreover, arm swing frequency also regulated not only hip and shoulder interaction at low frequencies, but predominantly ankle-shoulder in-phase coordination at higher frequencies, suggesting a tight coupling between arm swing and postural coordination. Long story short, arm swings is so you can have upright posture and regulate your ankle frequencies. Another long story short, if I don't swing my arms, I'm going to overuse certain things. I might use an ankle or a foot. I might overuse it, and then you'll be like, yo, my tibia or my ankles are hurting more. I mean, unless you sprain your ankle, but you're going to overuse things you might not necessarily need to use if I'm not doing things correctly, if I don't feel this flow from side to side. Because your body's adaptable. It's going to find a way to get a task done. Obviously, long-term might not be the best way, right? If you're in competition, that makes sense, right? You're at the last mile in a race or running. But I want to make sure things are moving, so there's no undesirable stress placed elsewhere. All right. So through running, our center mass goes both vertical and through a horizontal translation. It peaks through swing, and it's the lowest during stance. So again, walking, running, these things, we take it for granted because it's just like, yeah, we're New Yorkers. We have places to go. So, I'm in a rush. I don't care about how I do stuff. But these are things that are important. So we sense one side of our body is falling as the other side of our body is rising, right? What your left side is doing is going to be opposite of what your right side is doing with your arms and your legs. So as soon as I go into heel strike stance, this is going to sound ridiculous. Imagine I have two heads or two parts of my head, right? As soon as my left heel hits, the left side of my head is going to drop. That's going to be at its lowest displacement because I'm compressed. Compression works with gravity. Gravity is a huge force that helps us, so I can kind of compress down. I feel loaded, sorry for spitting, feel loaded on this side. So now my right side, this part, can go into swing. This part's going to be at its highest. Boom. All right, from a vertical displacement, cool, that heel hits. Now we seesaw back and forth. Excuse me. Now my right side is at its lowest, and my left side is at its highest. It has to. So that's the vertical displacement. Obviously, horizontal is one side of my body is forward, the other side of my body is back, and that's what we talked about before. On heel strike, cool. As soon as my heel hits, my body has to go there. My pelvis, my hamstring, pulls that pelvis, and it's going to work with that inside thigh muscle and that outside hip to keep it back. So my other side, my glute, my psoas, my quad can pick the other side up. All right? So, and then ground contact time has an inverse relationship with leg stiffness. The stiffer you can make things, the less time you're going to spend on the ground, and that ties in with all the exercise component stuff. To be efficient, the body must absorb as much force as it can during early stance so it can return to the latter half of stance. Right? To make a long story short, with physics and the physics of it, potential and kinetic energy, if I do heel strike early stance effectively, I'm going to be able to store potential energy, which gets transferred to kinetic energy so I can go into swing effectively. Ipso facto, you're going to be more efficient. All right? Cool. And then, yeah.
Microphone.
Yeah.
All right, so now we'll get into the exercises and the strength portion, which really helps because we see everything that's happening here in early, mid, late stance within the exercises. So we actually see those shapes in the exercises that you do. Okay, so if you're having trouble with them, then that probably means that you'll probably have, as we clean those up, those are going to help you find those stances or have the strength to repeatedly hit those stances, right? So this would help you because now you're able to see this in things that you do already, and it all makes sense, and you see those shapes there. The first thing in strength is we'll see like bilateral movements. So those are two-legged, like squats and deadlifts. So how do those help out? Because they help us produce force. Okay. So when we compress and we push, it allows us to push ourselves and get over to the other side. All right. So it actually will help. Like a lot of athletes will say, just deadlifting and squatting make everything easier because it allows you to generate more force and be stronger. But that won't automatically carry over into running and athleticism. If it's put together with one-legged exercises, so unilateral exercises, and then learning how to use that strength and absorb force with agility and be able to redirect that force, then it really it's part of that whole piece of the puzzle, right? But if it's just having that, you're not going to see the carryover and utilize the effectiveness of those exercises into your running. So it won't automatically translate, but it will actually still augment your performance. The unilateral exercises, what also happens on bilateral, both sides of the body are doing the same thing. So if you notice everything we talked about in running and everything in life, what one side does, the other side does the opposite. Always have to center our mass. When we do bilateral, both sides do the same. So there's not as much rotation happening there. Okay? So when we go unilateral, It allows more rotation to happen, and it's going to, opposite sides are going to center our mass, okay? And so just getting from side to side, this is actually how we perform all of our athletic and human endeavors. So this is what the glue is. So that's why you always see those motions in there, okay? Especially the staggered stance, because the other foot being down allows what Andrew was talking about. When one side of the side goes forward, the other side has to go back, right? And you see both feet on the ground a lot in those instances where it has to, so then the other side can push, where the other side has to feel the floor and then go. So you're going to see all of that happening, especially in staggered stance positioning there. So these are going to keep us healthy, and it's going to keep your movement crisper. So it's a big piece of it when we do the unilateral stuff. Andrew talked about strength endurance is building those tissues to hit those stance positions over the duration of a run. So you have to constantly do that stuff. So it's having the mechanics down, right, and being able to hit those positions. But if you get tired and fatigued, even if you can find them in like the exercises or just within just learning, just knowing what you're supposed to do or feeling those things, if you don't build strength to it, which is adding load to like your one-legged deadlifts and stuff, and you go just 12 miles, like after a couple miles, your body gets tired. You're not going to, if those muscles get tired, you're not going to be able to have the economy, and their mechanics are going to go down, and then everything starts to, it's like an ecosystem. So that's why we have a lot of marathon runners who can't believe how much better they feel, okay, once they start exercising and doing the weight training. It makes a huge difference for them, because now they can repeatedly hit that. When they hit that, what we call is when, Andrew's talking about forward and back, but then when we push, we come to the other side, and it's more of like an up and over, which I like to call floating, and that gives us the economy to allow the other side to get down. So when we push, we don't kind of roll over to the other side. We push, and we have this kind of like arc, yep, and so it's like you float to get there, and that's where the push happens and allows you to come over. That economy of floating, all you guys are good at kettlebell swings, what happens when you float and you're allowed to breathe back in, inhale, and then go, you have more economy, you can keep going, right? So the better you are mechanically, the longer you can go. If you give someone, we start people with swings, they get very tired really quickly, but a lot of it has to do with the efficiency of their mechanics too. And then, and then as they get better and we do all the cardio stuff, the cardio will be the one that will start to go as we challenge them more. But in the beginning, it's the mechanics not allowing them to go so long, right? It's like if you could take someone who's a marathon runner and throw them in a cage with a UFC fighter, they're going to be huffing and puffing really quickly because they can't carry that over to those techniques there, and they're going to be panicking, and they're going to not be efficient, and then they're going to get extremely exhausted really quickly, so it won't carry over. So like another example is like a runner who runs 10 miles and who's not strong is given a 50-pound kettlebell to hold for 2 miles. For someone who runs regularly 3 miles but lifts weights 3 times a week and is giving 50 pounds to hold for 2 miles, who wins? It's the person that weight trains, because once that person has it, even though they can go longer, they can't hold themselves up for that long. Submaximal effort. Think about a lunge with weights, right? There's a lot more range of motion. You have to push a lot more. When you're going running, it's a submaximal effort. So the higher you go, like say if you were able to bench press or you deadlift, say 200 pounds for 5 reps, and I give you 100, you could probably keep going all day long, right? Or 53, I'm like, do as many reps, and you just do like 30 or 40. Did you practice doing 30 or 40 all the time? No, you got your strength up, so then that weight is so light for you that you can keep going over and over again because you're not getting tired, right? And so when you get stronger, that allows, again, those muscles to go for a longer period of time, which would be your mileage, right? So getting stronger, everything's about that submaximal force, and that really carries over there, okay? And then we talk about better running economy. That'll allow you to hit your mechanics, which will allow then that economy and the arm swing and all those things to happen there. And we can build that by like isometrics, just holding positions in the beginning. Then we do that by tempos, going nice and slow, okay, and working that way. building the slow fibers. Because when you run, you're going to run for long periods of time. So tempos, especially on the way down, which is the way down, and say on a lunge, is just, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then pushing back up. So the tempos, the duration of training those fibers that are going to actually have to absorb that load over time, that really helps in your running, okay? And so that's why we have it in February, this. So anybody who wants to, as the season starts to pick up, your programs are going to be tailored based on this, where you're building, the isometrics in those positions, making sure you can hit those positions, then building tempos, so we can actually get those tissues now to be able to handle what is coming up. And then as we get closer, you're going to have more running that's going on there. So we would start to taper so you feel fresher for your meets. And then we do hops and agility drills. So you're going to absorb force, decelerate, reaccelerate. And so all of those things, when you're hopping and stuff and being able to do that, again, that's almost harder than like what it would be just to run. So the more you're able to exhibit good form, good absorption, and good force to redirect it and go back and forth. So that's like when you have your hide-ins, right? Those things are the ability to do that well is going to carry over, because that's what you're basically, you're showing that you can absorb and produce force. And then you'll be able to do that. If you're doing that, something that's harder than running, being able to just jump and stick it and keep doing that really is a good sign that you're going to be able to still kind of give that push, absorb, go back and forth. So all of those things are actually building that base for you guys, okay? And so like when we put it all together, when we look at some of the exercise selection there, when we look at just, even like you guys have a Camperini deadlift. So I have a little bit of a wedge here. So if I'm here and I'm here and I'm going to push my right cheek forward, and then what's happening is we're finding early stance. So remember how he said the left side will get shorter, right? Right, it's going back. So my right cheek is pushing forward, which sends my left back. So I find the left groin. So he's talking about the 3, the groin, the outside hip. And my heel, I'm getting more, the weight's going to the outside, so it's creating like a little bit of an arch there. But I don't want to fall over and lose that inside toe or inside arch, because then I can't push back up, or I can't even receive the load as it goes to mid stance. So right now when we have this, we're just working on early stance for you. Okay, and so what the groin is doing, especially that right tricep that he was talking about, that's keeping me from falling over, right? Because I'm getting all my weight into this left side, but if I don't find that groin and I just shift that way, I'm just going to fall over. I'm not going to be able to produce force to push, right? So when we do a Camperini, we're really focusing on early stance, finding that part there, okay? Stagger stance deadlift. So now see the foot's behind me, it's here. It starts the same way, and because that foot's here, as I come up, it's gonna slide. It's gonna start at the heel, and it's gonna slowly start to slide towards the front of the heel into mid stance. So I'm gonna feel, as I get it lower, I'm gonna feel more weight. Even on the outside, I'm gonna feel that arch more right here. And then I push through the arch, and it sends me back to the heel. And so you kind of feel the shifting forward and back. So the right hip goes forward, the weight goes here, but then we also have this with the foot. So as I start to come down, I'm going to feel that outside heel, and then as I get lower and the weight shifts forward, I'm going to feel the weight start to come to the inside foot again. Starts going that way. So you start to see in the exercises and in the positions where we put the foot, those things are happening there, okay? And that's why we also can see that big toe. Like if you see, like the next would be a split squat. I'm here, and that's why when we elevate the foot, so if you have your foot elevated on a block, what happens is that we're getting the ground to actually come up and push you up. So how he was talking about how when you get to here and this side, because it compresses, and then we get the abs here, and we get the hip here, the ground coming up, that's actually helping you get there without us even having to like drill it, right? And so if we do the split squat, this side's gonna push, right cheek's pushing forward, so right, and then this will send this back, same thing, but now we're getting deeper into the mid stance here. So now what happens is this left foot is gonna push, and as I push from the ground, it's gonna push from the ground, and I don't wanna roll over, it's gonna push me up, and then that comes up, and then it comes here, and it kind of sends me back towards the right. So I feel my right send me back to the right, which now I can push forward to send me back to the left. But right here is when we watch your feet, whether it's here or in a Bulgarian. If this comes up like this, we lost this on the inside. And now we're not going to be able to push and propel ourselves back up. And we might still come back up and do it, but you're compensating to get there. So watching the foot there is looking at that same pattern there and knowing that you're able to now transition into each phase and carry that over. So that's how, what we see there, we can just look at the exercises and you're doing and making sure that we're watching those spots so you can go in and out of those spaces, okay? And so that's where that kind of carries over to exactly what he was talking about with the feet. And you see like the front to back, you see how when I came up, I just didn't try to get to the other side. As we come up to the other side, you push from the ground up, so it pushes up, and then as that hip comes through at the end, it brings you over to the other side, but it's this kind of arc again. All right, so kind of you see that all there, and then as far as we talk about the upper body a lot, with the arms moving, so you're going to see that in your landmine presses. You're going to see that in your rows. So we're finding these positions, and now we're getting those arms to move and the trunk to move in these positions now. So that's why we have a lot of arm movement. So landmine press, we see the rows, and we're in different stances when we do the rows. So now everything we talked about, the arm swing, we're integrating the things that we did there. Whether even if you see like we do the DNS low sit with the T, right? Staying, getting ourselves to find that left stance, and then opening up the right trunk here on the side, so I'm keeping this here, so we can feel that right tricep, right low trap area here, okay, and be able to stay here, right? So you're going to see that within your movements there, and even when you do the DNS low sit, and we lift and we abduct. So the ability to get to the left side and get our pelvis to the left will allow us to open and abduct on the right side. So all of those things you see in a lot of the exercises that you do. And if we're able to hit all those spots and everything is going really well there, but there's some inconsistencies there, Andrew will get this as we go through the assessment, we look at your feet and your shoe wear. Because if everything and you're getting into these positions nicely and everything's opening up and you feel like every time you run there's an inconsistency in how you're feeling, could be a couple things there, but one of the first things we'll look at is your shoe wear. Because the way we're moving here, as we saw with the foot, you know, if one foot, if your feet have a lower arches, if your feet have higher arches, you might just have the wrong shoe wear for you. And then the other thing is knowing your jobs. So like for us, we stand all day. We're looking down at people. Our hands are on people. So I'm always here. If you notice with Andrew, we got to get this here, right? So the more often I work out, the better I feel. But if I'm standing and I'm 6 to 1 straight, so you go 7 hours straight, after there's a threshold there. Your body gets tired. You're always doing something. It's repetitive. We work in 3D. So the best thing is the more you move in all your dimensions, the better you're going to feel. So if you get stuck in a position all the time, it's going to influence those things, okay? So even like the mermaid breathing, probably all you guys have it. If you notice, it's the opposite of this. And I'm here all the time, no matter what. And then being taller and everybody's here, and then I have to put my hands, and where's my hands on people? I'm right-handed. My hands are here. You know how many times by 11, 12 o'clock, I'm like my hand, I'm like, I gotta work out in like 2 hours. I gotta make sure like my deadlifts feel good, because I know if this is here like this and I don't get this shoulder and this tricep, it's gonna affect the way my feet integrate with the floor, okay? And so if people in here have great form and their technique is pretty good, everything feels good, but then it gets a little inconsistent, and I know that you have the mechanism and you understand the lift, I'm going to this pattern because I'll look at the right shoulder, I'll look at how that left foot integrates, and then cue that and maybe do one or two and then look at that, and a lot of times that's it. So,
just a quick primer with shoes and stuff. The reason why shoes are important is reason being, if you have high arches, you're going to be more kind of to the outside of your foot. So if you've had frequent ankle sprains like I have, and I'm always to the outside of my foot, more likely to sprain an ankle. I'm going to be more overextended through my back. If you have low arches, you're going to be in the other end of the spectrum. You don't really do heel strike well, which is why for people who are more pronated, they'll turn out more. They're trying to go around their heel. So they always hit the inside, and then over time they develop bunions, they develop all of these things. Quick thing with shoe wear, the biggest thing that we go over, if I've had any of you on the table and I'm talking to you about shoe wear and stuff, and you're like, man, my back's really hurting me, I don't know what's going on, and I'm looking at you walking, and it looks like when you're walking, your foot never rolls in, you're just constantly outside, constantly outside, constantly outside. That was that person with a high arch, always here, and they never really got to pronation. They never got into mid stance. So just some quick stuff with shoes. Make sure there's a heel counter. This part should be stable. Shouldn't be like any of those barefoot running shoes where it's twisty, you can do all this stuff, and you're running. You want a shoe that's going to handle all the impact that you're going to put through it. So this should be stable. I shouldn't really be able to press into this. So this is a heel counter. This is pretty firm. This is probably the most important part of the shoe before I start even talking about wide toe boxer or anything like that. If this is not set, your heel is going to flip-flop back and forth. Your heel is like the rudder of the ship. So if it didn't have that support behind it, kind of nestled in, you're more likely not to feel your heel. You're not going to do early stance heel strike effectively. And you're just going to kind of stanky leg as you're running, or just, it's going to be inefficient. You're going to feel knees. You're going to feel some other stuff as well. Oh, another thing too that we look over too in the shoes, we're even able to test it on the table. So depending on the shoes that you're having, we would do this pelvis testing. That's going to give us insight into what position your hip is in. If you have a shoe that either from the design of it or maybe it's the insole or whatever it is, it's putting you to the outside of your foot, you're never going to get into mid stance correctly. So that's why shoe wear is important. So, yeah. All right.
Do you want to do overs test?
Yeah, you want to do a quick assessment? Yeah.
You could just do the overs.
Oh, done. Okay. So let's turn the table, I guess, horizontal. Might be better. All right. Anybody want to volunteer all right, there you go. Phoenix, come on up. Perfect. Okay. Cool. All right. So you're going to lay on your left side. Yeah, you're going to lay on your left side. I'm going to, let's have your head this way. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to briefly explain what I'm looking for this and how the shoes will make sense, why shoes are huge. Obviously for running, it'll be a little bit more cushioning. It makes sense. You're doing a whole bunch of miles, so you want something that's going to last a while. Good. Phoenix, just bring your knees up. Cool. Okay. So with this test, we're looking at the top side pelvis position, whether you can get into heel strike mid stance. Essentially, your foot has to land almost in front of your center mass, ideally underneath it, give or take. It's got to be in front. It's got to be underneath it. So if you're missing extension, you're not even going to get into mid stance correctly. So here's what we're going to do. Basically, we're going to see if her thigh bone can get in line with her shoulder and her hip. And if it can get in line, can it adduct or go down with gravity? All right. And then I'm going to explain why that's important. All right. Is it okay if I put my hand on the top part of the pelvis? Cool. I'm going to come underneath and grab the knee. Hold on, just relax. Appreciate you helping me out, though. Cool. So Phoenix can get in line. So she's hit heel strike, extend your leg. Heel strike. Well, ideally, this would be heel strike because a little bit. You don't want to be there. Like you wouldn't take a step and have your foot here. That you're gonna fall. or hurt yourself. Okay? So this would be heel strike, mid stance, until the other heel hits the ground, swing. All right, let your knee bend. Okay. All right, and Phoenix can adduct here. So this is the biggest part. Real quick, Phoenix, let's do it again. If this leg can't go down, this person would not hit mid-stance. So let's say if it didn't go down, and I got a coffee table, and this leg won't go down. That person wouldn't be able to do mid-stance. So that's going to make shifting or lateralizing, going from side to side, harder. So that's why all of the stuff that we're talking about, from shoe wear, your range of motion, right? If you, for instance, if you couldn't touch your toes, probably wouldn't make sense to have you lift off the floor. Likewise, if you don't have this range of motion, probably running right off the back is going to be pushed back a little bit because you're going to hurt yourself if you keep going after it. All right, makes sense. All right. Another thing too, we'll go over abduction. Basically, actually, you know what, Phoenix, we'll have you come back. We'll just do a quick couple of tests, and then we'll do some shoulder stuff too, and that's pretty much it. All right, so you're good. Lay back on your left side. So from that test is important because it gives us heel strike and mid stance. All right, if you have the wrong shoes, we can try all we want, but that knee and that leg won't get close to the ground. So if you ever had any pain, you've seen me, and I had you take off your shoes and I have you go walk, maybe even get into left stance and just breathe here, and then when you go on the table and it drops, that's how I know it's the shoes. All right, for abduction now, how well you're going to do swing effectively. Phoenix, I'm going to have you extend your leg out. All right, it's going to be in line with the body. All right, it's okay if I put my hand here? Thank you. All right, and then this is abduction, so how well she's going to do swing. Obviously, you're not running and doing this with your leg. That wouldn't make sense. But you need these relative ranges of motion from the muscles that attach from your pelvis to your thigh that allows you to do swing effectively. For some people who are tight, they're not going to be able to do swing effectively, which also makes me think they're not going to do heel strike effectively. All right, so you should have 40 degrees. Phoenix has it. Cool. All right. These are the muscles I was talking about, your adductor magnus and your glute. They act to help you swing your leg forward. This inside thigh muscle, that adductor magnus, basically stabilizes so you can swing your leg along with your hamstring. And then we'll go over some of the shoulder stuff too. So Phoenix, lay on your back. We're going to look at both internal rotation. Let's do this. I'm going to test bend your feet and knees so you're comfortable. All right, so internal rotations, that's a mid-stance portion, right? If I can't internally rotate on either one extremity on the lower or upper, I'm not going to be able to shift from side to side well, right? We said mid-stance is going to be more of an internally rotated biased position. I need loading there. So that's why it's important. We're going to look at internal rotation. All right, it's okay if I put my hand here? Cool, thanks. All right, so stabilizing, cool. So she can do it on this side. Most people are not going to be able to do it on the other side as well because I'm on my right side, I'm here, arms already internally rotated because I'm already there. All right, so don't worry. Actually, we'll do it this side as well. So that's all you got right there. Okay, I'm not trying to make sure it does that as well. So that's why I'm putting my hand here, so I don't get a different result. Okay, and then we're going to look at horizontal abduction, right? This test just gives me more information about the position of your rib cage. If it's really back on that side, if you've done any of the PRI stuff and I'm saying, hey, feel this left lower part of your rib cage, that's called your posterior mediastinum. The left side doesn't fill as well as the right side because we're always in right stance. If you're looking at me from behind, my right rib hump or the right prominence is more back compared to the left. So this is why during kin stretch or any other activities, I'm trying to bring awareness to people feeling the left side so that can get on the floor. Again, going back to our asymmetry as humans, we're always here. So that right side of the ribs is going back. We got to be able to inhibit that to allow the other side to get some play before you can come back and let the right side shine again. All right, so this test is going to give me insight into that. So you're going to keep on your back. You're going to scooch all the way to the edge of the table. I'm going to put my hips here so you don't fall off. Okay. Cool. So your shoulder is going to be off the edge. Cool. And we're going to stabilize. We're going to see if this is able to go down. So it's a little tight. So ideally, if this would be 40 degrees, this would go down here. All right, that's fine. Other side will feel easier, so I'll tell you what, flip around. So head will be over here. This side will just flop back easily.
So they exaggerated it if the shoulders, so they do like the mermaid opposite.
Easy peasy.
Opposite of the mermaid, now my right back is rounded more, my left is flatter, and since I'm here, see how I can't open it up here? This is it. But then when I come here, because I have a lot of room, it comes all the way back.
Yeah.
So now if I can get this here, now, I didn't have to do anything crazy.
Thank you.
But then, so these positions just let us know when this can't go. It's not like, oh my God, like sound the alarms. It's like, when you lay down, where does your body like to settle? And that's probably where you're kind of settling, or your position that you're set in. So just knowing that on the table lets us know what position that you're in. So the same thing with what we saw with the hips is we could just tell based on those. We do a lot of other tests, but that usually is the double check, because there's always ways for us to compensate to get good range of motion, but that test won't let you compensate.
Those are the quick and dirty tests that we go to.
So if we do that and we see that, we're like, oh no, I gotta go back and look at this again, because there was something that was going on there because that needed that to get to there. So that's basically, we use that, and that just lets us know, is your pelvis more to the right side? So all the tests you were telling us, we're gonna see if that pelvis is more to the right, because we're gonna know what to expect in that test. So then we know that that person needs a little bit more of these in the workouts, right? And we just have to make sure, if you do that, and then you do your breathing, your warm-up exercises that all of you guys have, make sure that if you're sitting all day and you get stuck in that right side, we can get you back to the left side before you exercise, so now everything moves well during your exercises. Okay, because we're obviously living organisms and we're gonna favor that one side. We just have to know how to get back into it and feel that. So what the warm-up's goal is, and why do we have to warm up every time, is because we don't move as much as we're supposed to. And so being able to get into those positions to make sure we can find that. So this would be, the warm-ups that you have are great warm-ups before you run, right? Yeah. Because it's whatever you were previously doing, make sure we're in that side. Just because you can get in that side doesn't mean that it's yours to keep. Like, we gotta do this all the time. We're not above the law because we know how, we have to do it, and it just depends on, the more you're able to move and the more you're moving around, like with your job with doing stuff, like, yeah, maybe the less you have to warm up because you maybe work out all the time and this and that. But the more stationary you are, the more you need to warm up. Okay, if you're only gonna work out twice a week, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's more than 90% of the people. But you got to make sure you're getting your warm-ups in on a daily basis then, because and before you work out, you need to make sure you hit those really well, because you got to make sure you can find that, because you're probably going to wind up favoring that right side just naturally. So, the warm-ups, they're great. That's why just do them before you run, and then make sure you hit those. After you work out, everything still clears. We know that everything between your workouts were great. All the exercises you did and everything in that window was done appropriately. So if you come back and you're kind of on and off, then we look at the shoes. We look at what your program is for running, how you might be doing too much too soon. So the same thing with running is, like, you guys want a program, just let us know. On the end of that sheet there's a link, which is a good starter program. It's a lot of shorter runs built over time, okay? And it builds you up. It's actually one to build you up for a half a marathon. And it's week by week to slowly get you there. Because you could be doing everything right, but it's like if you came to the gym and we put too much weight on the deadlift every week for you, you're gonna get hurt. We could teach you the perfect mechanics and everything. It doesn't matter. You just load too much, okay? So if we get all these things down, we check the shoe wear, and then also now we're gonna check what your program is how you're building yourself up. Because that's another thing. It's too much too soon, or what you used to do, your body just needs to slowly acclimate to it, and you got to give yourself some time to progress. So we look at those variables when we see things, what are going on. If something's going wrong, that's what we look at in those variables, and we usually, for the most part, figure it out.
You don't have to run a marathon right away. Maybe you just want to try to run maybe 1 or 2 miles like a week. That's fine. Like, you start somewhere. Like if you've never lifted before, as we were saying, it doesn't make sense to just load a kettlebell or a trap bar, 200 pounds. If you just learn to lift 50, that doesn't make sense. So you don't want to 1 rep max your life. know.
What your goals are for why you're doing it, and then build it up. Question?
Yeah, we'll take time for questions now.
You got anybody? Else?
Yeah, any questions?
Is there going to be like a running club where we run together sometimes?
We could actually. There's a lot of people who do run, so we can like connect you there with that. Because I know everybody's schedules are really crazy. So yeah, there's something that we talked about in the past. Is the community and everybody like doing things together. So we could have like some sort of directory that we could put together for you guys to, if you get a couple people to link up at similar times with schedules. You know, but getting everyone together as a whole is harder. But yeah, people who do like to run, we could put some sort of directory together.
That would be good.
Yeah.
And kind of just be like beginner, long distance,
Yeah,
short
and I'm sure you can learn from tips from all the other people. There you go. Yeah. You can pick. Yeah. You can pick all the marathoners' brains of like experience and what to do, what not to do. Like, hey, I really like these Brooks, or hey, those Hokas are shit for my foot. Maybe not for somebody else. Again, everyone's got different things going on.
Yeah. The running is, whether your goals are you're doing runs and you want to run a little bit more and you want to go to a higher distance, this stuff helps. If you just want to just for your heart health and just to feel good and have that part of just your overall regimen where you just like to run like twice a week for like 2 miles, this is great. Like this covers everybody, and then it just depends on like what your goals are. But you know, obviously we talked about running and walking is, I think that's what makes us human. So being able to do that in some capacity, this helps everybody no matter what the spectrum is within your.
Bipedalism is different from a quadruped. Quadrupeds, hands and knees, the way their body has to function and move forward is completely different from hands and knees. We're more freer to do stuff. So much, unfortunately, more that we can be on our phones and not look and are looking down. But we can do a whole bunch of stuff.
It allows us to rotate.
Yeah.
And so that's why I usually say, because people are like, why do we shift to our right? Why do we have more organs on our right? If you look at a bike, it never stays at rest. The front tire is not stationary.
Yeah, I think.
Right? It's always to one side, and that gives us more variability to be able to kind of go back and forth. It's like a big truck that has, if you turn too fast with it, it could tip over.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Dina had a question.
So a lot of times if I'm running, I have like 5 minutes to get ready. What are the top 3 stretches before I go for a run, if I have 5 minutes?
I would say any of the breathing PRI resets that we do, we want you to feel definitely some left hamstring, some right glutes. We can even go over. Yeah, I can send it to you as well. But any of the 90-90 stuff, the left hip shift, right? Let's say a left side lying right glute max, getting that right glute to push you. There's also another couple of things I learned from Lori at PRI at the Institute, where they go over kind of a PRI squat or a retro walking, which is essentially, see if I have space to do it. I think I've given it to one or a couple of people. So retro walking, I'm sorry, it's called retro walking. So I would start, I'm not gonna have enough space, but you could practice this. So I'm in my left hip, I'm gonna shift, side bend, all those reference points. I'm in left mid stance, even though my left foot's behind me, inside thigh, outside hip, hamstring, right tricep, right low trap, I'm here. Keep my foot straight. Heel's gonna be on the ground. I'm gonna shift, get to this side. That's gonna feel easier. All right. And then if I do it this way, just so we get sorry, Chris. Okay. So I'm rounded in this position. I'm gonna keep rounded as I go. I'm here, because I don't want to extend. Otherwise, I'm gonna feel my back and gonna be pushed forward. So that would be a good thing, because and also this is great too because you're running forward. We don't really move enough going back. We don't get any retro or activity back, which is why we have you do this activity. I'm here. Yeah, so those 3 things are pretty good. Yep. Any other questions? Going once, twice. Sold. All right. Thanks for coming.
It's a lot of information, but as you have questions and as you look at it from your exercises that you have in your programs, just kind of think about, kind of go back and forth and think about like those things that we talked about here within the exercises. And more and more you should just connect with it there. All right? All right, guys.
Thanks for coming. How do I stop video? There we go.